Looks like we have one coming up. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning. I'm going to sign in after. All right, good morning, Chairman McCauley and members of the board. On behalf of Yosemite Sequoia RC and DC, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to Madera County for its longstanding support of our organization and mountain communities. Madera County was a founding member of Yosemite Sequoia and has maintained leadership voice through participation in our executive committee since the beginning. The county's support has helped Yosemite Sequoia grow from a small regional organization to a trusted convener and partner capable of securing and administrating millions of dollars in grants and investments that directly benefit our communities. County leadership and staff have consistently opened doors, provided guidance, and demonstrated confidence in collaborative approaches that have strengthened the ability to serve Eastern Madera County and the broader Southern Sierra region. Over the years, the partnership has helped bring significant outside investment into Eastern Madera County, supporting wildfire mitigation, forest health, community preparedness, recreation, and economic resilience. We've seen firsthand that even modest local investments can create meaningful impacts and help leverage resources far beyond their value. One of the greatest strengths of Madera County has been its willingness to collaborate with partners across jurisdictions and interests. Wildfire, watersheds, forest, and wildlife do not recognize county lines, and the county's commitment to working with neighboring communities, agencies, tribes, nonprofits, and landowners has helped build stronger, more efficient solutions for the future as a whole. The success of our region is built on these partnerships, and we're grateful for the Madera County's continued leadership in creating safer, more prepared, and more resilient communities. So thank you so much for your years and years of service, and we look forward to continuing that partnership.
Thank you, Aaron. Unless there is any additional public comment, next item on...
Chair, there are 3 online speakers.
Okay.
Melanie, go ahead.
Good morning. Can you hear us?
Yeah, there we go. I was having a little trouble unmuting. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. First, I want to thank each and every one of you as supervisors for your hard work on balancing the budget this year. I know how much time and effort goes into that. While you continue to work on the budget, I'd like to highlight the need to address compensation for our public safety employees. As I've been campaigning and meeting with the various representatives of the public safety groups, I've heard their concerns. One of the biggest concerns they have is around the compensation and the lack of COLA over the recent years. As an employer, one thing I know is that being competitive is incredibly critical. We do not want to see our talented folks from public safety leaving to go to another county because Madera County isn't offering competitive wages and packages. Public safety is too critical to our citizens and certainly a priority for me as a candidate for supervisor. I'm asking that as you consider the budget, consider wages for our public safety departments as a priority. Thank you so much for your time and your hard work.
Thank you. If you can state your name and residence for the record, please.
Yes, sorry about that. Melanie Barker Oakhurst.
Thank you.
Okay, Ashley, go ahead.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. My name is Ashley Nebaker, and I am a Core School resident, and I'm also the Executive Director of the Eastern Madera County Fire Safe Council. And I'd like to, of course, thank the board for its continued partnership and commitment to wildfire resilience in Madera County, and today in particular for considering expanding regional investments. Over the last several years, we have made tremendous progress together through collaboration between the county and local organizations, agencies, community groups, and residents. And we've been able to expand wildfire education and outreach, complete more than 150 defensible space projects in the last 3 years alone, treated many miles of hazarded roadside vegetation, advanced community wildfire planning efforts, and brought additional resources into our communities to help reduce wildfire risk. These accomplishments demonstrate what can be achieved when we work together towards this common goal. And at the same time, they've helped us better understand the scale of the challenges that still exist and the ongoing effort that is required to address them. And wildfire resilience is not a destination that we reach through a single project, organization, or program. It's a long-term commitment that requires planning and education, coordination, maintenance, continued adaptation as conditions change. And while individual projects are important, lasting resilience is built through consistent investment in the partnerships, capacity, and local knowledge that keep these efforts moving forward. So these regional investments play an important role in that process. They help fill gaps, they support collaboration, maintain momentum, ensure that communities can continue advancing resilience efforts, even as the priorities and funding, they are ever evolving. They provide the flexibility needed to address local needs and develop future projects, strengthen partnerships, and build upon the work that has already been accomplished. And this model, it's a model that is successful in other counties across California. And importantly, investments in wildfire resilience are also investments in the long-term health of our local economy. So reducing wildfire risk helps protect homes, businesses, tourism, infrastructure, natural resources, and the communities that depend on them. And every step that we take to become a more resilient community safeguards this economic vitality that we have and the quality of life that makes Madera County so very special. And so thank you again for your leadership and for your partnership and for your continued commitment to build safer and more resilient future for Madera County. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Kyle, go ahead.
Good morning, Kyle. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. It keeps trying to mute me, but if you guys can hear me now.
We can hear you.
Perfect.
Good morning.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name's Kyle Gady. I'm the program manager for the Coarse Gold Resource Conservation District. I want to start by expressing our appreciation to the board for your continued support. Because of your funding, we've been able to expand our Firewise communities throughout Eastern Madera County. We now have 34 recognized Firewise communities, with several more that are actually moving through the application process currently. These Firewise communities are making a huge impact on fuel reduction throughout Eastern Madera County. They're also helping homeowners to save millions of dollars in insurance premiums, and they're strengthening our overall fire resilient footprint up here in our region. Your guys' support has also helped position us to secure additional grants. Our county coordinator grant from the California Fire Safe Council, 2 Cal Fire wildfire defense grants, and several other opportunities that are continuing to grow our capacity. Your investment's helping us to protect our community, support homeowners, build a safer, more resilient Eastern Madera County. We really value our partnership with you guys, and we look forward to continuing this work together for the benefit of everyone who's calling Eastern Madera County our home. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Kyle. Do we have any additional public comment in the room or online? Okay, hearing none.
Wait. I did.
Oh.
Let's see, how do I get?
And if you could state your name for the record and county of residence.
Hold on. You're pushing. Delay. Okay. Kimberly, do you have a comment?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I watched the video of your, the proposal to the supervisors regarding the short-term rentals, and I would like to say I appreciate the effort of the county to upgrade and update to current times the rules regarding short-term rentals. I just would like to ask that the county also address some of the more antiquated definitions and requirements that aren't precisely addressed in the short-term rental proposal but that have an impact on it. And one of the examples I want to make is with regard to the new proposal that if someone has over an acre of property and is qualifies for 2 dwellings on their property, then they can apply for more than one short-term rental permit. So for example, I'll give myself as an example, currently renting my home while I've left the county to take care of parents, and I want to return to my home, so I'd like to convert or make another small short-term rental, and according to the new proposal, I would qualify, but if you build an ADU, you can't rent it short term as it's defined in your code. And if you build a guest home, all you can have is a wet bar. So I heard a lot of discussion about safety and concerns about the vacationers, whether people have to respond because they're drunk or noisy. But if all we're allowing in a guest home is a wet bar, that might be expected. And if we're really embracing the fact that we have some unique circumstances in Eastern Madera County being so close to Yosemite, and that we can provide good habitation for visitors, shouldn't we be able to let them have a hot plate or steam some vegetables? I mean, they can make a margarita with 10 square feet of countertop in a guest home, but you can't even put in 2-burner stovetop to make some decent food. So in a way, the rules sort of encourage a party lifestyle. And I don't think that's what we want. And frankly, I don't think that's what most people are doing. They're probably not really following the rules. So I would like the county to just take a look at that and see why can't we have a 7 cubic foot refrigerator that defrosts itself instead of under 5 cubic feet, which is the requirement now that all require manual defrost. Some of these things I think were made a long time ago, and they're really not apropos for what we're doing up there with short-term rentals. And I don't think it's really what the county wants, nor does the county enforce it. So I'd just like to see the rules upgraded a little bit so that they all dovetail together and make sense. But I really appreciate what the county's doing.
Kimberly, if we could have you state your name and county of residence for the record, that would be much appreciated.
Kim Fletcher. I'm currently residing in Los Angeles County. I lived for years up in Eastern Madera County. I was an attorney up in the Oakhurst Bass Lake area, and then for years a prosecutor in the Bass Lake area. And I want to follow the rules. I just hope the rules get upgraded so they make really sense so that people can stay healthy, prepare a meal, and not just or drinks.
Thank you for your comments this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, unless there are any additional public comments online or in the room, we are going to move on to item 4, which states the 26-27 budget hearings will continue day to day until concluded. So it is after 9 a.m., so it is time to start the hearing. So we're going to start with item 5A.
County Administration Department Administrative Officer's presentation and overview of the 2026-2027 proposed county budget and special revenues budget with direction as needed.
Good morning, Chair and Supervisors. Matt Trieber, your County Administrative Officer. So I'm excited to be here today. I've got a brief kickoff before I hand it over to our Assistant CAO and our budget team to go through the presentation and overview. I just wanted to start the day by first thanking all of our elected department heads and appointed department heads. I can report proudly that for the first time since the 1920 budget, we have a balanced budget with surplus revenue going into our reserve fund. And that wouldn't happen without, obviously, this board's support and continued efforts, but those efforts of all of our departments that have come together, and we've saved and cut a little over $2.4 million from our net county costs in order to meet those revenue and the surplus that we're putting into our reserve funds to try to get back closer to where our policies are and what the Government Finance Authority also recommends for us on a reserve funding. So again, big kudos to our sheriff and our district attorney and our chief probation officer for all the work that they've put in with our community corrections partnership and the ABA 109, finding that additional revenue to maintain and increase staffing and funding to those public safety shops and offsetting costs on our net county, on our general fund expenditures. Again, and there were cuts across the board from all departments. So again, wanted to take a brief moment just to thank everybody that played a role in getting us here. And with that, I'll just close with, again, thanking this board for your continued support and efforts, and all of our employees getting us here. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Joel and the budget team to walk through our presentation and budget overall for the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. We'll begin our formal presentation today by introducing revised pages that came to our attention after publishing the budget. The first set of revised pages are in the analysis of revenue section, which is Roman numeral 22 and Roman numeral 27 of the budget book. And then the second set is the behavioral health budget unit detail on pages 569 and 579. The changes are all related to the same issue in which state mental health revenue was not totaled. It doesn't affect the bottom line of the budget. It did not affect the net county cost. It was just put in a different section. So these revised pages rectify that issue and make sure that we adopt on record an accurate budget. Today, we'll provide a brief overview, introduce each department's budgets, allow for time for any questions to department heads and staff, and then immediately after that, the board switches to deliberations. But first, just some highlights on the budget. The general fund budget is, the total county budget is $590,147,548. That is an 11.7 million increase across all funds from the prior year. We do want to highlight that the $5.2 million increase in general fund is the smallest increase in general fund expenditures that we've had in the last 5 years. And it's largely due to costs that we cannot avoid, like retiree health, retirement cost projections. Those things continue to go up. Total funded positions in the budget is 1,787.5 funded FTEs. This reflects a net increase of 21 funded positions. That's made up of 30 positions that are funded with third-party revenues like AB 109 and other funding received by the Sheriff's Office, Public Works, and Behavioral Health Services that are grant-funded and not general purpose revenue funded. And it is offset partially by the unfunding of 9 positions across the assessor, auditor, controller, clerk elections, community and economic development departments, and the Department of Social Services. The recommended budget net county cost is $106,839,721, which is a 2.2% decrease or 2.4 million decrease from the current year NCC of 109.2 million. So as Matt has said, a lot of work went into reducing the load on the discretionary revenues. What that does, this provides an overview of how that impacts our fund balance. Based on our projections through actual expenditures through April, the actual net county cost for the current year we project to end aligned with operating discretionary revenues, leaving no operating deficit for the current fiscal year 25-26. We began the year with a fund balance reserve of 1.4 million, which in previous budget discussions we have identified as critically low. Your board did approve the one-time transfer of local agency and tribal consistency funds, otherwise known as LATCF funds, to the general fund for a total of 3.9 million, which based on that, we project the ending fund balance for this current fiscal year to be $5,454,641. If the recommended budget is adopted as presented with a surplus of 2.1 million, it increases our reserves by the end of next year to a projected $7.6 million. Again, going in the right track, reversing the trend of using fund balance reserves. Despite the cuts and tightening, the discretionary versus restricted funding remains heavily skewed to non-discretionary funds. 82% of the county's budget is for third-party funded state and federal mandated programs. Therefore, those are funding sources that come from outside the county. 18% of the budget is funded with general purpose revenue, and that is the green slice. Within that green slice, 71% of that goes to public protection programs. Again, maintaining the board's and the county's commitment to prioritizing public safety. We do want to note, though, that for those that look at our last year's presentation, that this percentage was about 73%. But part of that reason is the Public Safety Department has looked at the nexus on third-party funding, braiding those funding, including AB 109, mental health funding. So some of those costs that could be funded by other revenues are funded by other revenues. And as you'll see later on in the presentation, overall appropriations for public protection experience a slight increase, not a decrease year over year. This provides general fund proposed spending under each major category. So I'm going to start on the left, the general government category, which includes general purpose revenue funded operations that are non-public safety. There is a slight increase year over year of $1.2 million, but I can say that's primarily due to retiree health premiums increasing and the impact of adding the debt service for the new Riverstone Fire Station. So that's counted as general government appropriation. So other than that, there's no other increases in general government. Out of the multiple categories of public protection, judicial, police protection, detention and correction, fire prevention, and protective inspection, all but one experience some or growth or at least flat year over year. The category of other protection has somewhat a significant decrease year over year, but that's largely due to our county GSA projects. So that ebbs and flows and what's budgeted. So that's not related to any kind of cut of operating staffing or operating services. Health and mental health programs experience an increase primarily due to expansion of mental health services, trying to adopt to the BHSA rules, and just kind of retooling services provided to the community. This is all funded with third-party funding and has no impact on general purpose revenues. And then finally, public assistance for the third straight year has a decrease in total cost. That's through DSS efforts to align spending to projected revenues. And there's a lot of things going on in the public assistance world, specifically due to HR 1. And some of those they're trying to anticipate. The state has decisions to make on June 15th. And we believe we're going to be talking more about public assistance over the next few months. What's new for this year that we kind of want to highlight is what we're calling a 5-year strategic financial plan. It's a 5-year outlook of where we think net county cost targets should be and where we think discretionary revenue funding will be over the next 5 years. We try to predict where our surplus is going to be or our deficit is going to be based on increasing net county cost caps and targets that we would set for each department. The first column represents what we had already presented in an earlier slide, that we're experiencing a 2.1 million surplus in the current year, and we project to maintain that surplus if projections hold and caps, net county cost cap targets are met in the strategic financial plan, reaching our target fund balance by 2028-29 and reaching the GFOA higher target by 2030-31. It's not quite a multi-year budget, but the goal of staff is to recognize the impacts of decisions made today does impact things 5 years ago, so makes budgetary recommendations more strategic. So today, in all, staff's recommendation is to designate all or majority of the projected surplus to replenish an unassigned fund balance of the general fund, which is what we call our general fund reserves. But with the budget surplus, the board may also direct staff to designate all or a portion of the projected surplus for any other eligible purpose. For reference, the only current existing designation in the fund balance is a $900,000 designation for fire equipment replacement reserve. Budgetary designations are outside of the fund balance reserve as they're classified as assigned fund balance once a board makes a designation. Things that the board might consider as a priority is designating some funds for funding wildfire mitigation projects across the county. We are recommending to continue hiring controls that has been in place for the last few fiscal years, just so that positions are filled strategically and in alignment with available projected revenues. And as always, we continue to work with department heads to further improve efficiency through reviewing reorganizations, consolidation of services, or leveraging third-party revenue. That concludes our introductory presentation. We're available for any questions. And after that, we go into reading each department budget and then opening it up for questions, budget by budget.
Excellent. Thank you, Joel. This time I'll look to my colleagues for any comments, questions they may have. Hearing none, I do want to call out the inclusion or staff's consideration in regards to a wildfire resilience fund. I'm sure you all can imagine I may have had something to do with getting that prompt in there. And as we're moving forward with our budget and we're looking at our available reserves, what we're anticipating putting in reserves, and we're looking down the line, I'm hopeful the board may consider this concept of a wildfire resilient fund, establishing this fund that would allow for consistent funding to our partners, whether that is funds to fill project gaps or funds to assist with matching funds for a grant opportunity. So very similar to Measure T, these funds can be leveraged. They are going to make a big difference if it's something the board is looking to do. Have had some good conversations with staff in regards to what that could look like. And whether or not that would greatly impact our ability to continue putting reserves in. So tomorrow we're going to have a discussion around transient occupancy tax. We're going to be looking to see if we can increase revenues here in Madera County. That will be a discussion for this board. From my perspective, I think TOT is too low in Madera County. I think there's a great opportunity to increase revenues through TOT, which could create up to $2 million a year in additional revenue for the county. I think one of the obstacles we have in that measure is the trust of folks in District 5. And I think if this board is willing to go out on a limb, make a commitment to this wildfire resilient fund, I think that would go a long way with the voters in District 5. So for your consideration, again, I'm hopeful that this board would be open or amenable to some sort of wildfire resilience fund that would allow us to propel projects and safety forward throughout the county. So with that, I'll be quiet for a moment and check in and see if there's any comments, questions from the board. If not, we're going to go ahead and move on to, I guess, our...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first budget for your consideration is the Child Support Services budget, which is the first budget of the public protection category. It begins on page 1 of the budget book. Total recommended expenditures of $4,695,609 represent a decrease of $228,143 from the current fiscal year, mainly due to vacancy-driven salary savings necessary to stay within available revenues. This budget reflects 40 funded positions, which is at the same level as the current year. Sarah Honeycutt, Director of Child Support Services, is available for any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none.
The next group of budgets for your consideration are the district attorney budgets, which begin on page 9 of the budget book. The total CO recommended expenditures of $9,720,890 represent an increase of $359,627 over the current fiscal year based on projected current staffing costs. The budget reflects 50 funded positions, which remains unchanged from the current year. The district attorney net county cost reflects a decrease of $322,160 from the current year and is achieved by a combination of vacancy-driven salary savings and new revenues that were proactively generated by the department. District Attorney Sally Moreno is available for any questions on this budget.
Thank you, Joel. Any questions for the DA? Seeing none.
The next departmental budget for your consideration are the Sheriff's Office budgets, which also includes the budget for the Sheriff's Law Enforcement Divisions and the Sheriff's Office Jail Division. Law Enforcement Division begins on page 45 of the budget book, and the total recommended expenditures for the Sheriff Law Enforcement budgets is $38,310,647, which represents a net increase of $253,518 over the current fiscal year. The Sheriff's Law Enforcement net county cost represents a decrease of $1,026,187 from the current fiscal year, mainly due to vacancy-driven salary savings and revenues that were proactively generated by the Sheriff's Office. These budgets reflect 179 funded positions, an increase of 8 deputy sheriff positions over the current fiscal year, which are assigned to school resource agreements and law enforcement agreements and are fully reimbursable. The budget for the jail division begins on page 153 and reflects $28,360,482 in proposed expenditures, which is a $3,053,713 increase over the current fiscal year. This increase is primarily due to the mid-year funding of 9 unfunded positions over the course of the current fiscal year, bringing the total of funded positions to 118 funded positions, with 13 remaining unfunded in the position allocations. These positions were necessary to safely operate the jail and accommodate temporary process changes related to the ongoing jail expansion construction activities. Additional increases include contracted increases to jail medical and food services agreements. These increases are primarily funded with revenues that were proactively generated by the Sheriff's Office, resulting in a net county cost increase of $261,013. Tyson Pogue, Madera County Sheriff, is available for any questions on this budget.
Thank you, Joel. I'm going to look to my colleagues for any questions they may have in regards to the budgets. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. I'd like to make a comment or request if you'd be so inclined. As the board knows, each year the county estimates how much surplus will be returned from individual department budgets, and that projected surplus is then counted as revenue for the following year's budget. So those estimates are prepared months in advance and are necessary for the county's overall budget planning. When those projections are made, there are still several months remaining in the fiscal year. There's so much uncertainty in our line of work that we can't go out and spend those funds on unbudgeted projects until the very end of the fiscal year. Absent something unexpected this month, we're estimating that the Sheriff's Office will return a significant amount above and beyond what was originally projected. This is in addition to the amount that was already anticipated by the county. That is in addition to the amount that, an amount that's over and beyond the original surplus amount that is used in the budget that you have in front of you. So I'm asking for your support by providing us feedback and direction to administration to assist us in designating a portion of the Sheriff's Office year-end surplus towards critical public safety equipment infrastructure needs. Our office has always taken a very conservative approach and has consistently returned unused funding to the county when those dollars were not needed. And this year, of course, is no different. Of that unplanned additional surplus amount from the Madera Sheriff's Office, I'm requesting those funds be designated into a fund balance designation for critical public safety projects, specifically radio infrastructure improvements, firearms replacement, and improvements to our phone system. This request will not impact the budget in front of you. These are dollars that were already budgeted and planned to be used in the current fiscal year, but due to careful fiscal management and fortunately because we did not experience any major disasters or unexpected emergencies that consumed large portions of our budget, those funds remain available. Additionally, the ongoing challenges we have faced with hiring have also contributed to a larger than anticipated year-end surplus. So we've been extremely fiscally prudent this year, and we believe this is a responsible use of those dollars. One of the critical needs is the replacement of our sidearms. Our current sidearms are about 10 years old. They're now starting to experience failures and wear and tear that we're seeing at the range. This is obviously a critical piece of equipment for our deputies. It's not something we can afford to ignore. However, it's not really something we can rush through at the last minute. We've also been working for over a decade trying to address issues with our radio system. When our radios went narrowbanded as required by FCC, the radio receptions plagued us ever since. Over the years, we've upgraded numerous pieces of equipment, including voter systems, receivers, we've added towers. Those improvements have helped, but they've not really solved our problem. So we're now looking at additional solutions, including equipping our vehicles with Starlink devices that would allow our MDTs, the computers in the vehicles, and our radio connectivity everywhere. In a county as geographically large and diverse as Madera County, dependable communications is not a convenience, it's really just a public safety necessity. We also want to upgrade our phone systems to a VoIP system. We've experienced numerous phone outages this year, and that creates operational concerns for a public safety agency. This will help improve our ability to serve the public and maintain our continuity of operations. This year gives us a unique opportunity to address these needs without asking for additional general fund support and future years' budgets. Due to the unpredictability of our operation, we cannot start projects like these that aren't budgeted until the very last minute, until we know we've made it through the fiscal year without some sort of disaster or other incident that eats up the majority of our budget. Originally, we considered trying to rush these projects through before the end of the fiscal year. However, that's not the best way to make decisions involving critical equipment and infrastructure. Rushing creates risk. It also increases the chance of making mistakes, not getting us the best deal fiscally, or selecting equipment that's substandard or not the right equipment for our agency. By providing direction to administration to designate the surplus dollars into a fund balance designation, the board will allow us to thoughtfully work through this process versus trying to rush projects through the end of the year. It'd give us the time needed to evaluate options, test equipment, compare the pricing, and ensure we're purchasing the right equipment at the best value for the taxpayers. This is about being responsible and making sure our deputies have reliable equipment, reliable communications, and infrastructure necessary to serve this county effectively and efficiently. As I said, the alternative is for us to try to continue to rush these projects, but it just creates too much risk for our department. I respectfully ask for the board's support in designating additional sheriff's office year-end surplus dollars into a special fund, or a fund balance designation for these critical projects. Though it's not an actionable item today, I'd ask for conceptual approval, feedback, and direction from the board members to administration so that we don't have to try to rush through these projects this month. I'll return to the board once the books are closed in August and make a request for a fund balance designation for our surplus funding that is above and beyond what was projected that's used in your budgets today. Again, it does not impact the budgets in front of you. It doesn't impact the fund balance that you're looking at in front of you. It'd be surplus dollars from our org accounts that is above and beyond what was originally estimated to be returned to the county months ago, which was used to calculate that budget. Joel can explain further the finance side in greater detail if you need, but from an operational standpoint, I believe this is a prudent and responsible path forward to accomplish these projects.
Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate the presentation, as well as your willingness to work with admin, Joel, Matt, on bringing us this budget today. So thank you. I'm going to look to my colleagues for any questions they may have in regards to this request. Yes, sir.
Yes, I want to just state that I appreciate the fiscal conservatism that you have displayed in managing your department, and I think we would be remiss in not rewarding such prudent behavior. And I continue to support public safety above anything else that, as far as our general fund dollars. We're at around 73% last year. I don't know what the percentage would be this year, but I think that is an ongoing consensus among this board, and I appreciate the suggestion, and I think it's a very good suggestion, and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Any additional? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Sheriff, thank you. Do you have an approximate idea how much these additional funds might be within a range?
Yeah, we believe we'll come in about 1.5 to 1.9 over what was projected. So in addition to what was our surplus that was projected that's used in those budgets, we'll probably be about somewhere at 1.5, 1.9. Again, because we don't know if we catch a disaster or a wildfire, we can't really start these projects mid-year when we think we'll have X amount of dollars, because if we do, and then we have some sort of incident or disaster or major failure of some sort, we won't have the budget to cover those. So this is really a reasonable and prudent way to accomplish that goal.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, Chair. Thank you, Sheriff. So I'm hearing kind of two different things. One, money set aside for disaster or emergency, and then we're talking about other infrastructure type things like radio upgrades, phone system upgrades, and firearm replacements. So is this something that we are looking at planning on using these funds to upgrade those systems in addition to a separate fund contingency for these emergencies, or what? Can you help explain that?
Yeah, so what I'm looking for is for this board to provide direction to administration to give a fund balance designation for the funds that come in, the surplus funds that come in over and above what was estimated to be used for these critical infrastructure projects. So the reason we couldn't plan these projects earlier in the year, even knowing that we have, or that we're likely going to have surplus funding, is in case we have a disaster. We have to have that buffer built in there to be able to absorb that, or we have to come back and ask for additional funding from the board, which, of course, we do not want to do. So we're not asking for any disaster funding at this time.
Okay. And would like to get, Joel, your thoughts on this, in addition to, were none of these anticipated as far as additional revenues prior to the creation of this budget?
Correct. So to provide a little background, we do our estimates based on April actuals, so that's pretty early in the year. We closed the books in August, so for us, it's about 4 months still missing. So we took a conservative projection on what we think we're going to end the year on, and that's what the sheriff is saying. What the sheriff's bringing to light is that from that conservative projection, they're going to come even lower, 1.5 to 1.9. Administration did have a discussion early this morning with the sheriff, so we asked the estimates on these infrastructure needs, and it's a fraction of that 1.5 and 1.9. But the consensus there is because it's not real until we close the books, per se, then we would have that fund balance designation discussion after August. And once we verify that it was 1.5, 1.9 higher, they'll have better costs on those projects. It's just a conceptual, the request today is a conceptual approval that your board would consider that. Because normally, once we close the books, we sweep general fund. It goes into the fund balance. So in this case, instead of ending the year equal revenue and equal expenditures in general fund like we projected, it'll be in the surplus of 1.5 to 1.9 because the sheriff has additional savings projected. But again, our recommendation to the sheriff and to the board is to discuss this later and conceptually provide kind of like a blessing on it, and then we will bring back an item after close of the books to make those designations. It's a little different than the designation that the chair had talked about because that's a discussion on designating fund balance surplus that we're already kind of anticipating based on current projections in the published budget.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. Thank you for those explanations. Any additional?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
just wanted to make one more point on this, and that is that these projects would be something that we would be doing anyway as a result of a necessity to provide new firearms, et cetera, for our deputies to make sure that these that they're safe. The communications infrastructure, absolutely vital. All of those things are vital, and so we would be expending general fund monies later on, no matter what. I think what the sheriff is asking for is to designate their current surplus in that regard. It'd be like having another reserve fund, but in the sheriff's department for those specific needs, so that they understand those funds are coming, so that they know that they can do these projects and they can work at them at a pace that's prudent and responsible, and get the best bang for their buck, so to speak, as well as to do them in a prudent manner, not a rushed manner. So I understand clearly what you're asking for, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. That's well articulated. So this is something we've, in our original budget's proposals, have had in there. but due to budget constraints, we've deferred these items, and at some point, we are going to have to do them, and this is a way for us to do it, not impact future budgets.
Excellent. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the questions and the discussion. From a procedural perspective, are we just thumbs up here, or I don't think there's any vote or anything we need to do here, right?
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. As I understand it, this request and this concept was built into the proposed agenda, so there would be no amendments needed in part of that motion. So I agree it's simply a discussion and some agreed upon direction in terms of closing of this year's budget. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. Again, I would just say that very supportive of this. Appreciate you bringing it forward. Appreciate, again, how you're running your department, working as a team for Madera County. So thank you for everything. Any additional comments, questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Chair. The next group of departmental budgets for consideration are the probation department budgets, which begins with the juvenile hall budget found on page 167 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $17,115,711 represent an increase of $123,660 over the current fiscal year. The budgeted net county cost for probation budgets reflects a decrease of $511,966 due to revenue that was proactively generated by the department. These budgets include 113 funded positions, which reflect a net increase of 1 position over the current fiscal year. The probation department also manages the local community corrections AB 109 operational budget, which is located on page 229 of the budget book. The recommended AB 109 appropriations for the budget year is $17,419,923 and funds service agreements and 42.5 positions from multiple public safety operations that perform duties related to AB 109. Jose Pantoja, Assistant Chief Probation Officer, is available for any questions.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Comments? Seeing none. Thank you, Joel.
The next set of budgets for your consideration are the fire department budgets, which begin on page 237 of the budget book. The fire department has 4 separate budget orgs, which includes the Main County Fire Department, Station 8, Riverstone, and Tesoro Viejo. There are a total of 5 positions allocated to this budget, which remains at the same level and continues the unfunding of 1 position to stay within net county cost targets. These county-funded positions provide accounting and office support, heavy equipment mechanic support for the equipment and county firefighters contracted with CAL FIRE. The Main County Fire Department budget includes the funding for all county fire stations, including those stations in the Amador plan. The total CAO recommended budget for the fire department is $16,921,365, which is an increase of $158,413 over the current fiscal year. Larry Pendarvis, CAL FIRE Chief over the Madera Division, is available for any questions.
Thank you, Joel. Do we have any questions for fire? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Agricultural Commissioner's budget, which includes the budget for the predatory animal control and begins on page 263 of the budget book. The total recommended budget of $2,677,593 represent an increase of $6,930 over the current fiscal year. This budget has 16 funded positions, which remains the same as the current fiscal year. The budgeted net county cost reflects a decrease of $63,470 due to revenues proactively identified by the department. Rusty Landsberger, Ag Commissioner, is available for any questions.
Thank you, Joel. Any questions for Rusty? Seeing none.
The next budgets for your consideration are the Community and Economic Development Planning Division budgets and the Building and Fire Safety Division budget. The Planning Division budget begins on page 273. The recommended appropriations is $6,763,451 and represents a $306,562 decrease from the current fiscal year in order to align costs with the available projected revenues. This division has 15 funded positions, a decrease of 1 funded position to help meet net county cost targets for the budget. The Building and Fire Safety Division begin on page 283 and has a recommended appropriations of $5,189,640, represents a $381,822 decrease from the current fiscal year, again, in order to align costs with available revenues. This division has 30 funded positions, which is a decrease of 1 funded positions to help meet net county cost targets for the budget. Jamie Bax, Chief of Development Services, is available for any questions on these two budgets.
Thank you, Joel. Do we have any questions for Jamie? Seeing none.
The next set of budgets for your consideration are the county GSA and drought budgets, previously titled Water and Natural Resources, which begins on page 293 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $14,475,466 represent a $1,624,656 decrease over the current fiscal year, primarily due to the Prop 68 recharge construction projects. The department has 10 allocated positions, of which all are funded.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments for Stephanie? Seeing none, I do want to congratulate you, Stephanie, on having a great week last week. As I understand it, we were able to resolve one of our lawsuits, so congratulations for that. Let's go ahead and move on to the next budget item, please.
The next budget for your consideration is the Flood Control Services Fund, which begins on page 303 of the budget book. This budget is not a part of the general fund and is a separate enterprise fund. It provides funding for flood system repair and other grant-funded projects. The recommended expenditures of $1,648,036 represent an increase of $603,345 from the previous fiscal year, primarily due to an increase in professional and specialized services. Stephanie Agneson, Director of Water and Natural Resources, is available for any comments or questions your board has.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Local Agency Formation Commission budget, which begins on page 309 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $36,254 represent an $8,585 decrease over the current fiscal year. We are available for any questions.
Thank you for that. I want to commend my colleague on the LAFCO board, Supervisor Poitras, for bringing that budget down. Any comments or questions? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Animal Services budget, which begins on page 311 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $2,171,762 represents a $5,111 increase over the current fiscal year. The Animal Services Department net county cost reflects a decrease of $87,389 due to continued salary savings and reductions in professional and specialized services. This budget has 20 allocated positions, of which 2 are unfunded to help meet budget target reductions. Amy Toller, Animal Services Director, is available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Amy? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Fish and Game Fines budget, which begins on page 321 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $5,000 remains unchanged from the current fiscal year. This is not a general fund budget. We are available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Trial Court Operations budget, which begins on page 323 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $1,320,531 remains unchanged from the current fiscal year. This budget represents the county's historical share of annual operation and maintenance cost for each court facility that was transferred to state control in 2007. We are available for any questions on this budget.
Thank you. Any comments, any questions? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the grand jury budget, which begins on page 327 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $105,000 remains unchanged from the current fiscal year. We are available for any questions on this budget.
Thank you. Any questions on the grand jury budget? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the public defender budget, which begins on page 331 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $4,135,887 remains unchanged over the current fiscal year. We are available for any questions on this budget.
Thank you. Any questions on the public defender budget? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Board of Supervisors budget, which begins on page 335 of the budget book. The total recommended expenditures of $2,277,109 reflects a decrease of $13,834 over the current fiscal year. There are 16 allocated positions proposed in this budget, of which 2 are unfunded. Karen Scrivener, Chief Clerk of the Board, is available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the General Purpose Revenue Budget, which begins on page 343 of the budget book. The general purpose revenues are driven by such but not limited to property taxes, sales tax, TOT, franchise fees, vehicle license fees, and public safety sales tax. Revenue projections are based on property growth, development activity, and historical trends. There are no positions associated with this budget. We are available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments, any questions?
I do have a quick question for Joel. On the VLF, a few years ago, we settled with the city of Chowchilla on VLF. And what have been the annual losses to the county as a result of that?
I apologize, Supervisor, I don't know that offhand, but we can take a look at that impact of that settlement.
Yeah, I'd like to know that just for negotiating purposes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Excellent. Any additional comments or questions? Okay, seeing none.
The next set of budgets for your consideration are the administrative management budgets, which include the 311 customer service, which begins on page 347 of the budget book. Total recommended expenditures of $1,504,097 for the admin budget reflects a decrease of $45,924. The total recommended budget of $219,559 for the 311 customer service budget reflects a decrease of $38,864. There are 16 allocated positions proposed, of which 7 are unfunded. CAO Matt Treber and staff are available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments, any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. Approximately how many 311 requests do we get annually?
I request as in?
Or service requests?
Service requests.
Yeah.
So we receive about 75 to 100 requests daily. I can get you a report if you want.
That's fine. I just wanted to know generally how many we received. Thank you.
Excellent. Any additional comments or questions? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the special payments budget, which begins on page 357 of the budget book. The total recommended budget of $7,185,087 reflects an increase of $280,311 over the current fiscal year. This budget also includes the county's annual contribution to the Fresno Madera Area Agency on Aging, IHSS, Eastern Madera County Foundation, San Joaquin Valley Water Infrastructure Authority, and Yosemite Area Regional Transportation System. There are no allocated positions in this budget. We are available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments, any questions?
Yes, I do have a quick comment.
Sure.
On the San Joaquin Valley Water Infrastructure Authority, as a comment on that, I sat on the formation of that. In fact, I was a principal in formation of that committee. That was principally established to procure funding from SB or from Prop 1 funds for Temperance Flat Dam. The consequent effort resulted in a paltry $200 million in a $3 billion need. So that project is basically gone, and who knows if it'll ever be resurrected or looked at. There were other areas which that authority tried to remain relevant in, but I really question whether we should continue to be involved in it. We're not really, in the last, I don't know how long it's been since that, 6 years, 7 years?
That sounds about right, yeah.
We continue to sit on that authority without any really relevance as far as need. And I know the cost is relatively low, but it's still money that I hate seeing, general fund dollars chipped away at for any purpose. And that's what, $15,000?
Well, $12,500.
Yeah, $12,500. And you stretch that out over 6 years, I mean, you've got a
Yeah.
paid position. Anyway, I'd like to hear maybe the thoughts of my colleagues on the board, just for information on how they feel about maybe stepping out of that role. Yes.
Yeah, through the chair, I would say if we're going to consider that, let's bring it back at a future meeting and take a look at all the ramifications and pluses and minuses and overs and outs and so forth. That's my recommendation.
Right, right.
Appreciate you flagging it, and that's, I think, a great suggestion.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Perhaps we can bring it back as part of a more robust item around opportunities for new water in Madera County, as well as perhaps water infrastructure, as it's part of a larger discussion.
Right.
So if that pleases the rest of the board.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just want to add that I think we were reached out to a few weeks ago by the authority requesting the information on who are the representatives. So it's interesting you asked, the timing is interesting. So yeah, I'd like to look into that as well.
Right.
Excellent. That'd be great.
We added to our follow-up items, and we'll bring a board item at a future date.
Okay. Thank you for that. Appreciate
Yeah,
the discussion.
just a quick thought in that regard too. You know, I know that CWD, we're working hard with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Agency on the idea of extending the height of Buchanan Dam, which is Eastman Lake. That would bring an additional 50,000 acre feet of water into that district, which would be really a demonstrable increase and beautiful. Perhaps, I don't know, I haven't explored the idea of connecting it with that organization, but and how they would feel about that. But anyway, maybe Stephanie has some ideas, and we can think about this along the way. Thank you.
I looked back there and I literally saw the gears start turning.
Yeah.
Not like this. All right, unless there's any additional discussion, I'm done making myself laugh, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the next item.
The next budget for your consideration is the Health and Social Services Campus budget, which begins on page 361 of the budget book. This budget reflects the pass-through charges to public health and social services for the lease finance of the 4 health and social services buildings in the Road 28 campus. There are no positions associated with this budget as it serves as a purely accounting purpose. Staff is available for any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any comments, questions? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the legal and insurance budget, which begins on page 363 of the budget book. The total recommended budget of $8,808,930 reflect an increase of $518,607 over the current fiscal year, primarily due to the rising cost of retiree health insurance and liability insurance premiums. There are 3 allocated positions in this budget, and all are funded. Darren McCandless, Deputy CAO, is available for any questions.
Thank you for that. Do we have any comments, questions? There's no item that I like less on our budget than this one. I know Supervisor Wamhoff talks often about our liability insurance and how it continues to climb. It's something that, you know, definitely gets at me, eats at me. And so I just want to say that, you know, as we're moving forward, I fully support Supervisor's thought process around pushing back against some of these more frivolous lawsuits. This is absolutely a line item that we need to get under control. So thank you for the presentation. Unless there are any additional comments or questions, we'll move on to the next item.
The next budget for your consideration is the County Council budget, which begins on page 371 of the budget book. Total recommended budget of $2,480,500 reflects an increase of $225,500 from the current fiscal year. Staff is available for any questions.
Any comments, questions? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Human Resources budget, which begins on page 375 of the budget book. Total recommended budget of $2,537,855 reflects an increase of $84,254 over the current fiscal year, primarily due to an increase in the cost of salary and benefits and retirement cost. The department has 21 allocated positions, of which 5 are unfunded. Shanika Dixon, Human Resources Director, is available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Public Information Team budget, which begins on page 383 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $8,750 reflects a decrease of $1,250 from the current fiscal year. These expenditures are used to help supplement expenses for the Public Information Team. Staff is available for any questions.
Any comments, questions? Seeing none.
The next set of budgets for your consideration are the General Services budgets, which begin on page 387 of the budget book. Total recommended budget of $672,574 for the General Services main budget reflects an increase of $26,775 from the current fiscal year, primarily due to increase in the cost of salary and benefits and retirement cost. Total recommended budget of $1,370,000 for the Building Operations budget reflects an increase of $642,500 from the current fiscal year, primarily due to the shift of security services appropriations from the special payments budget into this budget org. Total recommended budget of $1,827,056 for the Building Maintenance budget reflects a decrease of $78,762 from the current fiscal year, and the total recommended budget of $847,936 for the Grounds Maintenance budget reflects a decrease of $65,713 from the current fiscal year. There are a total of 29 allocated positions across all of its budget orgs, of which 5 are unfunded. Staff is available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Utilities budget, which begins on page 407 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $1,240,650 reflects a decrease of $117,300 from the current fiscal year. Staff is available for any questions.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Auditor Controller budget, which begins on page 409 of the budget book. Total recommended expenditures of $3,096,466 reflects an increase of $107,875 over the current fiscal year, primarily due to an increase in the cost of salaries and benefits. The department has 26 allocated positions, of which 6 are unfunded. David Richstone, Auditor Controller, is available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Seeing none.
The next budgets for your consideration are the assessor budgets, which begin on page 417 of the budget book. There are 2 budget orgs for assessors, the assessor's main budget and the GIS layer redraw. Total recommended budget for the assessor's main budget of $2,835,992 reflect an increase of $6,130 from the current fiscal year. Total recommended expenditures for the assessor's GIS layer redraw budget of $99,000 reflects no increase from the current fiscal year. There are 33 allocated positions, of which 14 are unfunded. Brett Frazier, County Assessor, is available for any questions.
Thank you for that. Any comments, any questions? None.
The next set of budgets for your consideration are the Tax Collector and Treasurer budgets, which begin on page 429 of the budget book. Total recommended expenditures for the tax collector budget of $1,981,187 reflect an increase of $166,887 from the current fiscal year. Total recommended budget for the treasurer budget of $1,819,809 reflect a decrease of $11,863 from the current fiscal year. There are a total of 25 allocated positions in these budgets, of which 1 is unfunded. Tracy Kennedy is available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments, any questions for Tracy? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration are the clerk, recorder, and elections budgets, which begin on page 451 of the budget book. Total recommended expenditures for the county clerk recorder of $1,827,691 reflect an increase of $53,543 over the current fiscal year. Total recommended budget for the elections budget of $1,865,628 reflects an increase of $11,033 over the current fiscal year. There are a total of 21 allocated positions across both of these budgets, of which 2 are unfunded. Becky Martinez, County Clerk Recorder, is available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments, any questions? I will say, once again, thank you for all your work last week. You and your team did a wonderful job. Thank you.
The The next budget for your consideration is the mailroom budget, which begins on page 465 of the budget book. The total recommended budget of $477,976 reflects a decrease of $51,777 from the current fiscal year. There is a total of one allocated position of which is funded. Becky Martinez, County Clerk Recorder, is available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments, any questions? Seeing none.
The next set of budgets for your consideration are the information technology budgets, which begin on page 471 of the budget book. IT consists of 4 general fund budgets, beginning with the IT main budget. The total recommended budget of $7,647,171 for the IT main budget reflects a decrease of $155,962 over the current fiscal year. Total recommended budget of $438,785 for the IT1 solution budget reflects an increase of $1,000. The total recommended budget of $3,938,594 for the IT information security budget reflect a decrease of $269,824. And the total recommended budget of $688,551 for the IT VoIP phone system reflects a decrease of $264,840 over the current fiscal year. IT has 37 allocated positions, of which 1 is unfunded. Ted from IT is available for any questions.
Thank you for that. Do we have any comments, questions?
I do, Mr. Chair. Ted, I'm concerned about the security risk for the deferred maintenance on some of these workstations. It's even identified as high-risk workstations. So are we making ourselves vulnerable? Are we at a critical risk by not replacing or updating some of the software and the
So the software will be updated and the systems themselves will be able to be upgraded for security purposes. So I think for pushing it back 1 more year, I think we'll be fine. We'd moved our standard replacement cycle backwards, or we made it more, we were doing it more quickly in the past, and I think we can go back to more industry standard this time.
Okay.
So we should be fine.
So you're okay with moving forward? Okay, thank you.
We will have money for critical ones that may go down, and those that are over 5 years old, we will be taking care of them.
Okay,
So
great.
yeah, anything under 5 will be fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for those questions. Thank you for being here today, Ted. Any additional comments, questions for IT? Seeing none?
The next budgets for your consideration are the Public Works budgets, which begin on page 531 of the budget book. Total recommended budget of $5,694,466 for the Public Works main budget reflect a decrease of $1,807 from the current fiscal year. Total recommended budget of $4,221,191 for the Special Districts admin reflect an increase of $211,728 from the current fiscal year. The total recommended expenditures of $41,623,602 for the Roads and Bridges budget reflect a decrease of $3,277,888 from the current fiscal year, and the total recommended budget of $22,550,027 for the SB1 Road and Bridges budget reflect an increase of $7,691,760. And the total recommended budget of $7,380,803 for the Road Transit budget reflect a decrease of $794,517 from the current fiscal year. There are a total of 132 allocated positions across all of its budget orgs, of which all are funded over the fiscal year. Jared Carter, Public Works Director, is available for any questions.
Thank you for that. Any questions for Jared? Seeing none? Yes, sir.
Where's he at? Oh, there he is. Yeah, from my office, I'd like to get an idea of what equipment we have that specifically involved in rebuilding roads. I know that at one point we had some equipment that I've asked about it not too long ago, and it was like gone. So I was like, what? What happened to that equipment? Anyway, if you could get that for me, I'd appreciate it.
There we go. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Jared Carter, Director of Public Works. Yeah, so we have various machines that we can utilize for that. Primarily, our paving machine is the main equipment that we do have for that. However, those of you who are aware of 720, that limits our ability to do work with force account crews, hinders a little bit as far as the use of that equipment. We are looking at budget. We have in budget here's a few items to get equipment for chip sealing, which is an activity that's not quite rebuilding roads, but it will be able to use that for some maintenance and improvements on some of the roads that we do have that we can apply that treatment to.
I understand we don't have a surfacing machine, a grinder.
Yeah, that's correct. We do not have a pulverizer. I know the county had one at one point many years ago.
Right.
However, at this point, we do not have that. It is something that we could potentially look into. However, I would just say again that, the limitations on our force account work don't give us a lot of room to be able to do that work with our own crews, and so we typically have to contract that stuff out. But we're definitely looking at ways to try and overcome that. It's actually a very touchy point for Phil Toller and I to try and figure out how we can do that better and make the most of our money. No offense to the contractors, but when we can pay less to do that, it makes sense. So we're just going to have to work through that.
I know we did a lot of chip seal work over there in MD21, and that really turned out good. It worked out very well. What is the minimum thickness that can be laid down by our paving machine?
So the minimum thickness is typically 1 inch, and the way that the code reads, anything over 1 inch is considered construction, and so we have to do a 1 inch. And as you can imagine, especially in your district, 1 inch overlay doesn't do much for a road that's in pretty poor condition. And so it is a challenge to be able to do more than just a 1 inch and do something that's effective and will last, significant time.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Thank you for the question. Anyone else? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Behavioral Health Services budget, which begins on page 569 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $60,471,728 represents a $4,866,154 increase over the current fiscal year, primarily due to an increase in salary and benefits and professional and specialized services for contracted services for psychiatrists, telemed, and medication monitoring services. This budget is 100% funded through state, federal, and other third-party sources with no net county cost. There are 255 allocated positions proposed in this budget, of which 19 are unfunded. Nikki Matus, Director of Behavioral Health, is available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Nikki? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Public Health budget, which begins on page 589 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $30,013,672 represents a $120,115 decrease from the current fiscal year. This budget is 100% funded through state, federal, and other third-party sources with no net county cost. There are 152 allocated positions proposed in this budget, of which 10 are unfunded. Sarah Boss, Director of Behavioral Health, is available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments, any questions for Sarah? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Environmental Health budget, which begins on page 605 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $2,958,746 represent a decrease of $50,602 over the current fiscal year. This budget is 100% funded through state, federal, and other third-party sources with no net county cost. There are 19 allocated positions in this budget, of which 1 is unfunded. Jamie Bax, Chief of Development Services, is available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Jamie? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Fairmead Liner Fund budget, which is on page 617 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $28,520,185 reflect an increase of $1,567,849 from the current fiscal year, primarily due to an increase in building and improvements for solid waste infrastructure and capital improvement cost. There are 5 allocated positions proposed in this budget, all of which are funded. Jared Carter, Public Works Director, is available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Jared? Seeing none.
The next set of departmental budgets for your consideration is the Department of Social Services budget, which begins on page 627 of the budget book. The total recommended expenditures of $136,714,599 represent a decrease of $2,196,876 over the current fiscal year. The total estimated net county cost of all social services programs is $2,984,780, which represents a decrease of $525,515 over the current fiscal year, based on projected third-party revenues and realignment revenues available for all programs. There are a total of 392 positions allocated to this department, of which all are funded. Deborah Martinez, Director of Social Services, is available for any comments or questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Any comments or questions? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Veteran Services budget, which begins on page 669 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $514,508 represents a $24,631 increase over the current fiscal year. The Veteran Services Office net county cost decreased $19,743 to help meet target reductions. This was achieved through salary savings for the fiscal year. There are 14 allocated positions in this budget, of which 1 is unfunded. Deborah Martinez, Director of Social Services, is available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Deborah? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Community Action Partnership budget, which begins on page 675 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $340,055 represents a $10,627 increase over the current fiscal year, primarily due to salary and employee benefits. Maddie Mendez, Executive Director of CAPMC, is available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Maddie? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Senior Meals Program budget, which begins on page 677 of the budget book. The recommended expenditures of $132,000 is based on the level of pass-through funding for the Senior Congregate Meals Program and the county's required match. Funding for this program was previously allocated in Org 08200 Community Action Partnership and in Org 02200 Special Payments for the county's match. We are available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on the Senior Meal Program? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Homelessness Grants budget, which begins on page 679 of the budget book. The Homelessness Grants budget consists of the Housing Assistance and Prevention Program, or HAP grants, awarded to the county. Recommended expenditures of $1,803,663 represent a $565,496 decrease over the current fiscal year, primarily due to the drawdown of the various HAP grants. We, as well as Deborah Martinez, Director of Social Services, are available for any questions.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Library Services budget, which begins on page 685 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $2,439,923 represents a $168,432 increase over the current fiscal year. There are 24 allocated positions for this budget, of which 4 are unfunded. Krista Riggs, Library Director, is available for any comments or questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Krista? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Cooperative Extension budget, which begins on page 691 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $118,234 is a decrease of $800 from the current fiscal year. Karmjo Rondawa, Fresno Madera Cooperative Extension Director, is available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Seeing none.
The next budget for your consideration is the Fleet Services budget, which begins on page 699 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $5,516,565 represents a $3,537,753 decrease over the current fiscal year. Expenditures in this budget are offset primarily by mileage charges to user departments as well as vehicle maintenance charges to subvented departments. There are 8 positions allocated to this budget, of which all are unfunded. We, as well as Michael Motz, Sheriff's Civil Unit Manager, are available for any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair. In regards to our vehicle leasing program, how is any of that reflected in this budget?
Take it. Yeah, thank you, Supervisor. Yeah, that's a good question. That major decrease year over year is related to the vehicle leasing program. And the reason for that is instead of budgeting the replacement reserve funds for outright purchases, we are now budgeting the annual lease for those vehicles that are in the schedule. We can guarantee you that we are still on the schedule on replacement. It's just how it's reflected. It's one year of either a 4-year lease, 5-year lease, or 3-year lease, depending on the financial situation of each vehicle. Sheriff's vehicles are leased for 3 years because we reach targets in 3 years.
Okay, and how are we doing on that schedule of implementation?
Right, so so I'm gonna defer to Mike Motz on that, who's been in communication with our lease vendor.
Morning, Chairman, Board of Supervisors. Mike Motz. What was the question? I couldn't hear it.
Where are we with the implementation of our leasing program?
As far as we started out with the start of the leasing program started with sheriff's vehicles. We're about halfway. We've taken all the sheriff's vehicles in, and we're upfitting those. We're about halfway through that process, and we've leased a couple of different vehicles for general purpose vehicles, and we've taken possession of those. I think 3 or 4 more. These vehicles that are listed in our budget are all intended to be through the lease program as well. If you'll notice that there's only 2 patrol cars in this one, and that's based off the fact that we purchased a bulk of them in this budget year. This take-home vehicle project that we implemented a couple of years ago, quite a few years ago, has finally started to catch up as far as not having to replace so many vehicles all at one time, which is actually a positive thing, a plus thing. So it's actually starting to make its rotation. When we first started, we had to put in 52 to 60 vehicles all at one time, and now that's all caught up. So now we only have 2 patrol cars to replace this year.
Gotcha. And what is the upfit time once we receive those vehicles?
It depends. Right now, our vendor right now is averaging between 2 to 3 weeks per vehicle, and we're sending them 3 vehicles at a time.
Gotcha. So as far as the leasing, the start date, essentially, the clock ticks when we receive those vehicles, right? Not necessarily when the vehicle's upfitted.
That is correct.
So
I will say that on this process, for the first set of vehicles that we purchased, it was kind of a hybrid model because we had already paid for the upfits. So that's a little bit of the lag. But these next vehicles that we get, these 2 vehicles that we get, and any replacement vehicles from the future will come turnkey upfitted. So there will be no lag. They will replace a patrol vehicle with an upfitted patrol vehicle.
Gotcha. And are we looking at any updated mileage reimbursement or mileage cost associated with this new leasing program?
Well, there's 3 models, and I don't know if Joel wants to talk about it. I could talk about it too. There's 3 different models. The one model is where, depending on like patrol vehicles, they will definitely hit the mileage within that time frame of 3 to 5 years. So those would be standard mileage program of I think $1. I think we're currently at $1.64 a mile.
$1.64.
And then the second model is where we're replacing vehicles that are outdated or older vehicles that will not hit the mileage at a certain time. With that model, the department would be responsible for, by journal entry, paying the lease payment and then paying a reduced mileage rate to pay for the fuel and the repairs and insurance and those kind of things. And then the factor of the replacement is not included. So that's why the reduced mileage rate goes down. And then the third option is the department purchases vehicles through or actually
purchases vehicles through grant programs or outside funding. With those types of purchases, the vehicle is purchased by that department using the grant funding, and then they pay a certain, they pay not a mileage rate, they pay for the fuel and the repairs and any associated costs that are associated with that vehicle until it's retired.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have any other questions.
Good job,
Excellent.
Mike. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions, and thank you for the response. Any additional questions on fleet services? Seeing none?
The next budget for your consideration is a microwave radio services budget, which begins on page 707 of the budget book. Recommended expenditures of $390,600 represent a $23,782 decrease over the current fiscal year based on the expense to fund the microwave equipment replacement project. This is not a general fund budget, and there are no positions included in this budget. Ted Usaka, Chief Information Officer, is available for any questions.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions for Ted? Seeing none.
That concludes the presentation of the main general fund budget, and we are moving to special revenue budgets, which is the small binder.
Excellent.
The special revenue fund budgets represent governmental funding streams that are tied to a specific purpose, like a grant or realignment. They are budgeted annually to meet statutory requirements and to provide an added level of transparency. These funds are budgeted as operating transfers in to operating funds like the general fund, where they are utilized for operations. Staff from various departments are available for any questions you may have on any of these budgets.
Excellent. Does the board have any questions on any of our special revenue budgets? Okay, seeing none.
Thank you, Chair. I think that concludes the presentations for today. Your board, at least for the main budgets. I think the follow-up items I had listed is revisiting the discussion on comments made on fund balance designations for the proposed budget, as well as considering the conceptual proposal that the sheriff has proposed, not for the fund balance designation on this budget, but for a future surplus to be identified at the end of the current fiscal.
Okay, thank you. Before I open the public hearing, I want to look to my colleagues for any final comments or questions they may have before we do so. Okay. Seeing none, I just want to commend you all once again for the work we've done on this budget. As you noted, I think the 2019-2020 was the last time we had a surplus going back into our reserves, and so it's been kind of a long road, not necessarily making cuts, but tightening our belt. So I think we've gone about this the right way here in Madera County, making sure we make good use of existing reserves while being fiscally responsible, looking towards the future. So again, thank you, Joel, for all of your work. Thank you, Mr. CAO, and to all the team members, department heads that were able to bring us this budget today. So with that, I'm going to open the public hearing.
Thank you, Chair. Just
yes.
a clarification, you're opening up the public hearing for public comment. This portion has been a public hearing.
Apologies. Yes, opening it up for public comment. So we'll look for any public comment in the room or online.
None online?
Okay.
And Chair, one more point of clarification. Staff is asking that we keep the public hearing open until after the recess, and so that all any of the changes that have been discussed or recommended are able to be filed with the clerk of the board prior to the close of the hearing. And so the request is to keep it open during your recess.
Thank you for that, Council. So unless there are any, yes, sir.
Yes, and more broadly, Sheriff, if you have a moment, would you come up? Sorry, it's impromptu, but when we look at these budgets, and more specifically general fund budgets, it represents 18% of our overall budget. But when we look at public safety, when it comes to fire, for sheriff, for DA, for probation, all of those things, these are the quality of life issues that we need people to feel safe. And, representing frontline deputies, myself, that is in a patrol car who responds to 911 calls, speak to the importance of having radios that are functioning and what that actually means to a deputy out in the field when you're in an emergency and you are speaking into the wind because no one on the other end is hearing you. And so when we're talking about phone systems, when we're talking about radio upgrades, when we're talking about gun replacement's a little different in my mind, but when we're talking about safety aspects for our deputies that we are entrusting to go out and respond to 911 calls when, someone is calling in, not on their best day, but they're calling in on their worst day. Not many people call 911 very often, and when they do, it's typically their worst day. And these deputies are going out day in, day out, night after night, responding to these issues. So we want the ability to have a fully functioning radio system. We want the ability to have a fully functioning phone system for when people do call into 911, that they're actually speaking to someone instead of having these phone issues. We've had phone issues for quite some time. If you could, please speak to what needs to be upgraded. And I know you don't have the exact cost, but can you just speak about what that costs to upgrade those essential services for our public safety?
Yeah, so the cost estimates is definitely one of the unknown factors at this point. So with our radio systems, as you so eloquently put it, you can imagine being a 20 or 30-year-old young person responding to the middle of North Fork where there's no street lights, there's nobody around, and your nearest backup is 20, 25 minutes away. And you get on that radio and click that radio and ask for emergency help, and you get nothing back. You have no choice. You can't pull out your phone. You're fighting with some, very large person who's probably drunk and who's just, assaulted someone, beat up someone, out of their mind. You have to be able to call for help. So I appreciate that you've brought that to the forefront. That's really their only lifeline is that radio. It's not feasible for them to pull out their phone, make a call to dispatch and say, hey, I'm out here in the middle of a fight. Can you send somebody to come help me out? So on the radio side, we've tried installing voters. So the way our radio system works is from the handhold, they key up the radio, and depending on where you're at, it'll hit a different system, and basically a voting system. It'll send it back to the main repeater and then back out. We've tried installing additional voting systems. We've actually installed a tower out in above Tesoro Viejo. We're getting ready to install a tower on the top of Shut-Eye. So we've made some very significant infrastructure strides on that front. We've tried different radios, like the actual physical radios themselves, to see if we can find them. But essentially what's happened is when the FCC forced all law enforcement agencies to go narrowband, we've lost a lot of that communication ability. So it's not just us, it's all agencies. The difficulty that Madera County faces is our geographic region is so diverse, and we are such a large county, for the amount of people and amount of revenue that we bring in, it's really hard to cover all those areas. So when we have people responding up to the middle of the forest to initiate these rescues, and they're trying to coordinate resources coming in, there's no real way for them to hit every single repeater. So our solution that we believe will work is to put a Starlink on top of the vehicles. For any of you that know anything about Starlink, it broadcasts a Wi-Fi network around that area. It's fairly large, probably a couple hundred feet, maybe 100 yards max. Within that cloud, if that radio can transmit out through Wi-Fi, they'll have perfect signal. They can receive and come and go. As other cars pull up, it builds that cloud larger, and as vehicles leave, they'll pick up the other Wi-Fi signals in the area. Additionally, a lot of our communication now, including the mapping and the call details, runs through the computer system, which runs off of cellular. When you start getting out of these rural areas, that no longer works. But on top of the vehicle, those Starlinks will work just about everywhere, short of around tall buildings, which is not a problem for us, or really large, tree canopies. It'll become a little bit more difficult. But from testing and from what we understand, it'll pretty much work everywhere. So the difficulty is that our radio systems are analog. You have to have a system that will take that analog system, convert it to digital, run it through the thing, and then back out. So that piece of equipment we're working on. We're not quite sure where that's going to fall. We spoke to Mariposa, who's in the process of doing the same thing. Their server system was about $700,000. We're working on a separate project that allow the radio system a similar thing. So we're hoping we could leverage that and not have to buy that extra server. And so that's why that cost piece is a little bit up in the air. And we also want to make absolutely certain that it'll work. And so for us to go out right now at the end of the fiscal year and pull those POs before the end of the fiscal year and try to move this project forward, we're not 100% certain it'll work, it'll accomplish what we're doing, nor we're getting the best fiscal value or anything else. So that's why deferring it over to this special designation is a safer bet for us. It gives us more time to make sure that we're getting the correct equipment at the correct price and fiscally responsible there. As far as the phone systems are concerned, since we moved into the current building, every time it rains, those copper lines run under the building. They're running through some sort of shared space there with other equipment. They get wet and they're shutting off. We're not sure why. AT&T's looked at it. Additionally, we are impacted by regular outages where somebody hits the line and it knocks the phone system out. So by going over to VoIP and having redundant systems, if that data line goes down and we have, for example, Starlink or another satellite system or a cellular failover system or any other system there, that system should keep working and where people can call in. We're pretty fortunate that 911 generally doesn't go down as much, but we've had recent instances that you've been made aware of also where 911's gone down. That's extremely problematic. And even when it does go down and we can transfer it, then we're transferring it to another agency who's then trying to field the call, and they're unfamiliar with the area, they're unfamiliar with our protocols and stuff. So it creates a, I'll say a less safe, less efficient environment for the people that we're out there serving. So the VoIP system has been implemented, I think, in just about every department in the county except for ours. We're obviously very large. We're a general fund county, so the cost of that is substantial. And so when we were looking at that, for example, last fiscal year, and we're looking to try to make certain budget targets to make sure that we're not dipping into those county reserves, that was one of the things that was deferred just because of the cost. Fortunately, as we go down the road now, equipment's a little bit cheaper, and we're a little bit more fiscally efficient with implementing that system. So it'll be a little bit cheaper for us, and we're at a better place to implement that now. So.
Okay.
And as far as price goes, I believe that Ted does have the quote now. We've been actively working with him, so I'm not certain if that's ready to go yet, but it's probably going to be in the neighborhood of about $200,000 to $300,000.
Okay, that's good to hear because, when we're talking about radio upgrades, sometimes we're in the millions and millions of dollars. So I guess the new technology and all that, it's good to hear that we're moving in that direction. I just wanted to get kind of an honest feedback as far as what we needed to be, or what it would cost to be where we actually should be in terms of officer safety and good communication, making sure that we have those lines open for when they need. So that's really all I was looking for. Thank you.
And ideally, the cost of Starlink is, I don't want to say cost neutral, but it's just barely above what we're paying for cellular now in the vehicles. So once we get the equipment, everything installed, the ongoing costs really won't be there. Maybe marginally, insignificantly more, but we're already paying for cellular. So this will then give the entire vehicle data access, not just the radios, but the MDTs and everything else, and the new camera systems that we're phasing into the vehicles will allow, if an officer or a deputy, for example, doesn't answer, it'll allow the dispatcher to turn on that camera and see what's going on. So if for some reason they're not answering, they can see if they're down or injured or something like that. So a lot of positive things come from this.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for the continued discussion around this item. I've seen firsthand out on Road 200, been on a ride along with Deputy and seen their tactics for getting better reception, which is often holding the receiver out the door or standing on the the vehicle. So I think this is absolutely a worthwhile investment. You know, when we talk about our vehicle replacement program with the fire department, you know, we often talk about ensuring that those that go out into an emergency have the right tools. And this is no different. We have to make sure that our deputies have the right tools when they're out there putting themselves at risk. So thank you again for the discussion. Any additional comments, questions from the board? And I'm going to look to the public one more time before we go to recess. Any public comment in the room or online?
None online.
Okay. Hearing none, we are going to recess until 1 o'clock.
Recording stopped.